Hello and welcome back to another AP3 video. In today's video, we'll be going over AP Environmental Science, topic 5.8, Impacts of Overfishing. So first, we're going to talk about commercial fishing. And basically, commercial fishing is just fishing on a massive scale. Now, unregulated commercial fishing can lead to decline or extinction of fish species quickly. Now, the ways of fishing techniques that we're going to go over is long line, drift net or gill net, purse seine, trawling, or sonar. Now, it's not only fish, it's anything saleable for food in the ocean. So it could be crabs, shrimps, or even sharks when it comes to commercial fishing. So it's not only fish. So first, when it comes to fishing, we're first going to talk about long line. Now, long line is a very long line, as it says in the name, that has evenly spaced out hooks helped by little buoys. It's just the floaty thingies on top of the ocean water, just floating, as they're dragged by a ship and fish go for the bait and get stuck on the hook. Now they're as long as 20 miles and it can be set at any depth. On the top, they're called pollock long lines, and the type of fish that they get is tuna and swordfish. The pros about it, you can see a pattern with all the types of fishing. Again, it's very efficient and you can catch a lot of fish in a fish-rich part of the ocean. Now, the bad part about it is that it approaches overfishing quickly if not regulated, and it can also target non-target organisms can get caught as well. Other marine animals and even sometimes birds when it comes to non-targeting organisms or species. And now we're going to talk about drift nets or gill nets. They're both the same thing. Now, it's a very long net, and it can be, again, miles long, and it's set at varying depths depending on what you're fishing for, and then it's just pulled along behind you. Now, basically, fish swim in a net, and the net gets stuck in their gills, and once they're pulled out, they need to untangle the fish from the net. So we're going to see a pattern again. The pros, it's very efficient. The bad thing about it, it can lead to overfishing, and we can catch non-target species. So now we're going to talk about purse seine. And purse seine is a net that has drawstrings on it, and it's huge. It can go over 6,500 feet long and 650 feet deep. Now you can find an entire school of fish, and then you can draw the bottom shut and the top shut as you're pulling out like a giant purse full of fish. And we can look for small fish such as sardines and as big as a tuna. Again, pros, efficient. Cons, you can get non-targeting species, and because you can get schools, and schools is just a lot of fish in one area, and because you can catch schools of fish, it can lead to overfishing. And now we're going to talk about trawling. Trawling is just a net that has a cone shape. Now, it's dragged in the middle of the ocean water or across the bottom, and in the bottom we can get fish like flounder, crabs, and shrimp. And basically, when it gets dragged in the bottom, it's like an eraser. Any ecosystem like grass or coral is wiped out away into the trawling. Now, it could be destructive to any of those definite communities in the ecosystem. And now, where can we find those fish? Well, we have something called sonar, and sonar just basically helps find the fish. And it sets the net, and basically because it helps find fish, we can set nets to catch the fish, which are the pros. Again, it's inefficient, and it also reduces the amount of fuel needed, so it will reduce the combustion of fossil fuels needed. It will reduce the combustion of fossil fuels, reducing emissions in the atmosphere, and it also increases profits for the people during the fishing. The cons about it, it helps circulate overfishing, and it also interferes with the navigational systems of marine systems such as whales. So now we're going to talk about, again, all the problems also lead to the tragedy of the commons. Basically, it's an area used by everyone and it's regulated by no one, and it also leads to skews to self-interest. Now, this also can lead to, with efficient methods, it can lead to putting yourself out of business due to no regulation if we overfish too much. So if there's no fish, we're out of business because there's no regulation. So we can fish as much as we want, which again leads to self-interest. And it impacts humans as well. Again, tragedy commons is a very important topic that pops up a lot in this unit. So again, it's used by everyone, there's no regulation, and it skews, and it leads to self-interest. And if we do too much overfishing, you can get out of business and it affects humans. So now we're going to talk about bycatch, and bycatch is, again, what we've been going over this whole video, non-target species. Now, what happens to them? Either they're going to be processed with everything else, or they're tossed back to the other side and they might not be living. So in order to fix that, we can use an alteration method to stop the non-catching species, and we'll go over it in a bit. So what can we do to make it more sustainable? What we can do is catch the catch limit, we can make a catch limit based on maximum sustainable yield, or MSY, so fish stock can replenish themselves year to year. We can limit the age and size of fish that are caught, so we want to make sure no one's catching fish that's visibly part of the reproduction population, so you can make sure they replenish themselves again year to year. We can also use modified techniques to reduce pike catch, and basically say non-target species don't deal with issues with population declines. And we can also make laws and treaties protecting critical species. So now we're going to talk about modifying fish techniques. And again, the whole point of it is no bycatch. So we have an example of a turtle, and it's a TED, a turtle exclusive device. So you can put it on tarling net, and it's a circular metal piece inserted right before the cone starts to narrow, and it has metal bars in it. So it has a flappy door, so if the turtle goes into the larger part of the cone and encounters with the gate, and then it naturally is forced outside of the net. Now, smaller things do not force the open net and are pulled into the diminishing conal part of the whole net. And basically, the whole point of modifying fishing techniques, the little tweaks or changes can stop bycatching. And now we're going to talk about laws and treaties, and there's 2 you need to remember, but in the whole course there's 10 you need to remember. Here we have the U.S. Endangered Species Act, and then we have this is a long one, but there's an abbreviation, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, or just CITES. I call it CITES, but there's another way to pronounce it. I kind of forgot, but I call it CITES, or yeah, I just call it CITES. But again, there's another way to say the abbreviation. And great whales are protected by CITES because they were being overfished. Now, the negative consequence, so we need 2 things. We need to, anytime we make a treaty or a law, we need to have a positive and a negative consequence. In this case, we can have a fine or no trade with countries, or we can incentivize. And that's basically it, what we need to know about 5.8. This is another AP3 video. Thank you for watching.